So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the solid edge, and more of what we did. What this is kind of a continuation of the part two. First part, we were talking about the design, and we started getting into the data management part of it, the design part of it. So, and Andrea had mentioned we do have the part one on our YouTube channel, so definitely review that. So what we did cover in that section was the part design, the part drawings, getting into the data reuse. So if we were looking at some of the legacy data, maybe from AutoCADs or other CAD systems, we brought that in as a 2D or a drawing. We're able to build that geometry. And then what we're going to be doing next is getting into the assembly designs, assembling with our nuts and bolts, placing additional components, or maybe eliminating some interference and making some modifications on the fly during our assembly work. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to switch to my other monitor here. So you can see on the screen here, this was our initial design part, the one I've got highlighted, which is our clamping arm. So you can see in our first section, our first part, we were actually designing this part, making modifications, adding some holes to it. And then next was the data reuse, where we were actually creating this bracket from 2D geometry. So we had literally a 2D geometry and two different views. We migrated those views together into a 3D part or 3D space, create a nice little solid into it, put a little gusset in there, did some modifications on the changes. But now we're gonna get into the assembly part of it. So you can see here's actually my part as it's being designed in place. So first thing we're going to do is assemble this. And you can see this was our design that we had first, but we're going to build our sub-assemblies there. So now we've got to assemble to it. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select my axis. And we're going to select, well, looks like I picked did I select the wrong axis? I'll try that one more time. So there's my axis. Yep, that's my axis that I want. And then we're going to come in here. We're going to pick that next axis. So you can see it even tells me that the axis is there. So it moves my sub-assembly over and modifying. You can see the parts are being modified all at the same time. I come in here, select my next one. I'm going to use my quick pick. So you can see the 3 dots pop up. I'm selecting that plane right now, but computer recognizes, hey, there's other systems, other parts or entities that are there in that area. So if I right click on that, and I'm going to select in my quick pick the axis there, and I'm going to come in here and pick on my first axis. Oh, actually, I just noticed that I picked the wrong axis the first time. So let's back this up a little bit. That's what's nice about this. I can actually just back up. Because if you notice, I picked the wrong hole. I picked this hole down, the 4th one. I wanted the 3rd one. So I can come in here. Let's go back to my assembly. There's my first axis, and there's the 3rd hole. There it is. So that jumped up to my 3rd one. So luckily, I corrected it right away, and I can come down. I can actually rotate this part around. Let's pick the next hole. There's my axis, but let's use my quick pick, make sure I'm picking that correctly. And I come on here and pick my next one. So there's my sub-assembly. It's rotated in a nice position. But now what we want to do is we want to add some nuts and bolts in there. So that looks good there. And let's look at my bolt, and let's come down, and I've kind of put it in as a little shortcut here up top. So there's my fastener, which is there up on the top. And when it comes in, I want to look at my individual. See, right now it's saying select on the face, but I'm going to select a single bolt. What is my single bolt that I'm going to pick? This is going to be my first location on the first hole that I picked. That one looks good. There's my second one. I'll accept those. And then what I'm mating on the other side is going to be on the cylinder on the other side. So the first thing it's going to do is, what is my bolt components that I'm going to put in? So you can see in here my bolt components, or I can specify my top, my bottom components. what is the different standards I currently have installed. Right now, I just have the DIN standards on this one, but I could actually expand these and look at the previews. What are some of the other bolts that are recognized, different sizes that are available in there, so which is really nice. Maybe if I want to look at a threaded hole, there it is, a threaded with a T square, or maybe even an I bolt. So there's many that are out there in the standards. Okay, so you can actually set something up, but what I did ahead of time is I set up my top and my bottom stacks, and I saved that. So now I've got my top bolt, my bottom bolt, my washer all together. I can say okay to that. There's my bolt, that looks great. All right, so that looks really nice. So there's my sub-assembly, it's already done. Okay, next we're gonna get into the duplication part of it. So let's come in here and let's get out of my hydraulics and clamps. Let's look at my duplication. And we'll rotate this around a little bit, because now what I want to do is I actually want to add in my parts library a washer in this little area. So I can come in here and let's finish out of that one. Come above, and let's go back to my master mover theme, go to my parts library. So you can see here, that was my bracket that I currently had last time that we placed in the assembly. There's my L brackets in there. So there's the washer that I currently have right now. So I can come in here, look at my washer, place it over in this area. That looks good, but now let's maybe line that up against that area and that cylinder. Okay, that looks good there. And so you can see I've actually placed it into position, and I aligned it between the cylinder and the back faced area. Okay, that looks good there. And now we've got a duplication here. So the duplicate component. So that's one of the nice entities that where you can actually select that washer. Okay, and click on the component to duplicate, which is that washer. I'm going to accept that. Now click on the component that's made it up to. And if you notice, I have other bolts throughout my cover here, and I can come over here and say duplicate. So if you notice, they're duplicated the components and all the selected matching occurrences. So I kind of did this all at once. So you can see in there, I've got my original washer that's there. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So depending on where it's located at, I selected that bolt as a reference, and it puts that washer in there all together at one given time. All right, so that looks good. Now I can come back and let's look at my caster and wheels. Oh, can't cancel out of that. Oh, there it is. Zoom back a little too far. Let's fit that into my window. So you can see here, I've got my caster and wheels that are available, but you know, when I was designing this part, maybe I only designed it just the one wheel assembly. So this is where I could come in here, I could select that whole assembly there if I wanted to, but better yet, let's look at the sub-assembly. So because I'm in my caster set right now. All right, come on. Looks like it hung up on me there for a second. All right, there it goes. So what I want to do is I want to select my whole sub-assembly. So this was the sub-assembly that I was actually trying to select the first time. And I can select that, and we can actually open that up. Maybe I don't want the whole caster assembly, I only want a certain area of it. Okay, so it looks good there. Then I can go ahead and I can select this individual pieces. All right, so the next part, let's go back to this. My presentation. Okay, so what we're trying to do there is we're trying to show you some of the automated fast design tools, designing on the fit and function of validating that, some of the rapid components for duplications where we're taking that washer and duplicating it across. So next we're going to be using a assembly for the exploded views. So we're going to go back to my solid edge and we're going to go back to the first one. And we're going to come in here. So we've got this sheet. This was our original design where we created our bracket. We were creating our original design. We created that drawing from there. But next we're actually going to go into our assembly. And let's go ahead and rename this because we're going to make this our assembly. Okay, then we go into the view wizard. And if you notice here, I'm going to browse because I'm using a data management system. And we go in here to my search. So if I want to look for an assembly and I want that assembly to contain, and we'll say clamp. There we go. So I can come in here. There's my assembly. So it went out there and it went out and looked at my data management tools. There's my assembly. Let's go ahead and let's make this shaded with edges. So you can see there's my part. And let's come in here and what's my layout going to be? All right, it's not quite what I was looking for, but let's look at the exploded views. Yeah, there it is. So we got no selection. I want to make this an exploded view. And that everything else looks good. So there's my exploded views of my parts. So next with my parts, we just did a quick exploded views. Now we can come in here and generate my part list of those views, of those individual parts. We're going to look at some of our just standard views here. So you can see here, if I zoomed up on it, let's make it there. Let's make it a little easier on you. Okay, so you can see here, now I just created a nice exploded view. I can move these, balloons around a little bit. Here we've got the one. It is actually, if I hold my Alt key and if I move the one over, see it was kind of overlapping on top of the part. If I come in here and double click, this is a nice spreadsheet where I can be selecting each individuals it highlights, or maybe if I wanted to make that top one and make it, a little bit bold, or if I wanted it to be maybe a little different text, Arial black, make it a little bit stand out a little bit more. So you can see this is my nice exploded view. Once I'm all done, I can pick out and let's go ahead and save this. Okay, because remember I'm using a data management tool as I'm making changes. I'm going ahead and moving forward with that. So now what we also want to talk about is some of our, sharing this data with our non-solid edge users. All right, so now this is the nice portal that Siemens actually has, which is nice because I can go out there and share this data that I'm designing with some of my customers that might not have solid edge. So I can actually give them the link to this portal, create a nice little project name. As I'm designing this geometry, loading up these drawings, loading up this data right into the Siemens solid edge portal. And I can actually load up other CAD systems with this too, which is nice. And you can see on the screen, I'm scrolling through my master data, my current drawings. Maybe I want to do some markups on this drawing because I might be even a supervisor. Hey, I don't want to use that, that solid edge license. Let's use the free viewer to maybe do some redlining on some of these drawings. Like this one here, I'm the supervisor or I'm the checker. I'm going out there and doing a clearance check. So that type of scenario. So you can see here, he's actually saving that geometry, and then we can send that stuff right back over to the user, the designer. We also have a nice exploded view within the solid edge portal. So we're going to go ahead and it can be selecting these individual parts. So there's a sub-assembly that we were just looking a second ago where we actually created an exploded view, a drawing. But you can see here within the portal, I could be doing a nice design review with this portal system for somebody that doesn't quite have, solid edge. You can see we can do some dynamic sectioning. So this is a great tool for doing design reviews. So we want to see inside the parts. All right. Maybe even do some interference, or not interference, even send this out to the plant to see if I have these parts on hand in stock, because hey, we might not have these parts. This might be a purchase item. So this is a really nice tool to go out there and look at that stuff. All right, so you can see here with some of our assembly drawings that we've reviewed, some of our controlled drawing updates. We can maybe even view those engineering changes, automate those parts with the balloons, some of our free calibration tools for non-solid edge users. Okay, and the last section we want to get into is getting into some of the simulation part of it. So I'm going to scroll back to my screen. And you can see here's my drawing. So I'm going to go back to my individual parts. So here's my subassembly that I was working on. I can select this part and I want to isolate this one. So now this is actually my part that I've created, I've designed. I've actually added materials to this. I've even gone back and used the part viewer to give it a nice machine effect to my surface data, my features, which are the holes, okay, and even the backside. You can see where some of the abbreviation areas. So if I come in here to my simulation, you can see within my simulation, I'm going to create a new study. So what is my new study? Is it either linear static? I can come in here, my normal modes, my linear buckling. So there's many different modes or study types that we can do. So we'll just take the default there. What is my mesh type? Okay, you can see there's tetrahedral, surface, or even the mix with the general bodies. We'll keep that. And I'm going to select my part, and we're going to accept this. So here now I can go right across my part, going into defining, adding my loads, maybe my thermals, my constraints, my meshing, and my solving. But what I like to use is I like to use the simulation tool on the left-hand side, because now I've gone in, I've selected my parts. Now I can come in here and I can apply my loads. I want to create a nice structural load. Let's just say with a force. So I'm applying a force to a selected entity, which is going to be those two holes where we put the bolts in. So let's go ahead and select those two bolt holes. I'll just roll this around a little bit. So there's going to be my first hole. Oh. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to select my first hole. There's my third hole. Okay, and you can see here it's going in this direction. So I want it to go in this direction because that is going to be the pulling action. And let's just make this 250 newtons. All right, that looks good. You can see now I've got my force in there. And let's go ahead and add my constraints. Create my constraints, and we'll just say a fixed area, because this is going to be my fixed area where that's bolted to my tug there. All right, that looks good. We're going to set that. And then lastly, we're going to mesh this. But what's nice about this tool is I actually can mesh this and solve it all in one, because the part itself is not that big. But if I was going to mesh this and correct some of the mesh, that's where I might want to solve them separately. But with this part not being as big, not too big, I can actually solve it, mesh it. I'm probably running I think I'm running 32 gig of RAM on my machine. So it's actually solving pretty normal. Even with NX, I mean, we get a lot of guys that call in to say my performance is not very good, but then we look at the machine and they're only running 16 gig. Okay. So you can see in here now, I can come in here, I can animate this part. All right, so which is really nice. But my biggest thing is I want to look at the factor of safety here. Okay, if I come in here to my display, and let's look at my color bar, and I want to look at my minimum between 2 and 3. And you can see here in this area, this is where I need to be adding some material to it. Okay, so that's basically telling me, hey, between my values of 2 and 3, I've got a stressed area. I need to add some more material in that area. So I can close this out. I can get out of my restore, out of my isolate, and let's go ahead and let's turn off my meshing, because I don't want to see my meshing right now. Actually, we can turn off my loads and my constraints, so I don't need to see those right now. But I know in this area, I need to be adding some more material. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pick okay, I'm going to pick that face, but when I pick the face, it's giving me my whole selection. That's not what I want. There it goes. All right, so you can see there, I'm going to pick just that one face. And I want this also, this other face, because I'm doing multiple, I'm moving this whole area. I'm making a design change in 2 different parts. All right, I'm going to go up in this direction. But if you notice, I'm getting an error message because remember I said earlier, I'm using a data management tool. So this data management tool is telling me, hey, this part is actually checked out. So I'm going to say okay to this. I'm going to scroll back over. Here's my part. So if I pick the if I pick the one part here, this one here, all right, trying to find that part again, because I know this part itself, but I'm in a face selection mode. There it goes. I had to get out of the face selection mode. So here's my part that I currently have. And if I come in here, I want to create a revision to this part. I want to create a new revision. Currently it's at B. Now I want to make it C because I am using my data management tools. So now I've got that part. I just checked it out because it was locked. That's why it gave me that error message. And I can come back in here, go to my selection mode. There's my first one. And let's go back to my second selection. There's my second selection. Gonna move this part up. So if you notice, I'm moving multiple parts here within my assembly. So which is a really strong tool for Solid Edge. Okay, so that looks good. But also, remember in this area, I need to make a little bit because I've got a 2 millimeter radius in this corner. So I want to make that radius there, and let's just make that 5. But I don't want to go along my whole chain radius. I just want to make that individual radius. So I just want to make sure I'm picking the individual radius. Let's change that to 5. All right, that looks good. I can exit out of there. I come back in my part. There it is. I get out of face selection mode, pick my part, and let's go back and let's isolate this part one more time. I can come back to my simulation, or better yet, I can just come back over here and let's recalculate this. And actually, I didn't even have to remesh it. So basically, I'm just resolving with the new enhancements I have added to the part. So you can see it's solving. It's working pretty good, about 30, well, it's getting about 75, 80% there. All right, good. So now I can come back into let's go back to my display. And let's look at that factor of safety again. And let's go back to my color bar because I want to see between my values of 2 and 3. So now everything's green. That little bit of extra material that I've added is corrected. Now everything looks good. I've got a good part. Now I can actually save this data. Because remember, I'm using data management tools. Got to save my geometry after I make any changes to it. So it's going to update my assembly. And it does take a little time sometimes because I'm saving the simulation geometry too. I'm saving that mesh geometry. All right. And then we can go back, show my whole assembly there. So now there's my finished part. I've done my analysis to it and everything looks good. I can actually send this out to production now. All right. So lastly, here's some of our integrated simulation tools are great for our design engineers use. We're looking to reduce that physical prototype. So we're actually seeing if we can do analysis while we're creating our materials, we're creating our parts. And also we have other proven technology that's out there with FEMAP and Nastran that's running in the background. So like some of our notable takeaways, it's accelerated design, some of our faster revisions. So you can see I was making revision changes right on the fly, some of our better reuse, and we just put a couple quotes out there from some of our customers that we're supporting every day. And I'll hand it back over to Andrea.
Awesome. Thank you, Chad. And if you are not aware, here at Saratech, we do lots more than just kind of partnering with you on PLM software. We also have a whole 3D printing department, as well as services and training. So if there's anything else that we can help you with, you're welcome to reach out to myself or Chad. To reach my team, you can reach us at customercare@saratech.com, and I'll be happy to shoot you in the right direction. Let us know if you have any suggestions for future sessions. We will take those into account and as we're planning for the second half of the year. Thank you all so much, and we appreciate you attending, and we hope to see you next time.
Thanks for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw, make sure to like and subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any new videos. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for the latest engineering news and information. And to see all of our upcoming events, please visit our website at saratech.com/events.